Buddy, and today I'm talking about X-Men 97. I've been a bit behind, but I might as well just review like 2 episodes. So this episode we're reviewing Monto in Life Death Part 1. So Monto was a pretty alright story. It was Jubilee celebrating her 18th birthday, but that's where she hangs out with Sunspot after Magneto does not want to hang out with, go to an arcade with Jubilee because he says it's, childish, and Jubilee's, venting about Magneto to Sunspot, and they find what is revealed to be a Nintendo, and it basically looks like a Nintendo 64, if you know what that is. I'm pretty sure you do, but, they end up thinking it's, some game that says X-Men on it, but it turns out is a trap by the one mutant. I don't know his name. He's this giant slug dude. And he basically pulls the two into the game. And now we get this, very cool arcade, X-Men game. So I got a personal experience. I've been to this comic shop, and they had an X-Men arcade. The guy there, he has a lot of X-Men comics. Shout out to him. And this is the kind of vibe I got from this episode. It reminded me of those X-Men arcades. And arcade machines are they even popular, since video games are super popular now? And to see this was a thing back then. And to see our fellow characters go through various moments of their greatest adventures was cool. They go to the prison where the X-Men are forced to go to labor camps. This is a nice callback to season 1. Which is cool, because this show tries to not really acknowledge the show too much, since we do have the characters in it, but they try to they're doing their own stories, which is cool. And so far they're fighting various sentinels, they're going through various waves, and they're trying to get through it. But it isn't until they have to fight this one being, they're getting chased by someone in this armor, and it's revealed to be a much older Jubilee, who kind of just teaches her a life lesson. How, yeah, we are older, we go through hard times, we go through awesome times, and we find the mysterious ways of how life is very tough. And that was a nice message in it. But I think the main big bad is that they fight the giant dude, and they basically, I think they finish him off, and I think they were able to escape this game, which was very cool. So this is a nice callback to retro MCU. I know the nice retro games back then. I don't know why I said MCU, but anyway. Meanwhile, during all this episode, we see the return of Forge and Storm. Storm is trying to get her powers back, but it's just not working out. And it turns out Forge ends up confessing his feelings to Storm, and she just slaps him. And they actually did try to get her to have her powers back, but she ends up just they use this machine that can maybe get her powers back, and she tries to call to the winds, but it just does not work. It's very unfortunate for Storm, and Forge actually confesses that he didn't actually have a way to restore Storm's powers. He just wanted to spend time with her because of how lonely he is. And we also get cool Easter eggs of I think the X Factor, which was cool. And I think, yeah, this episode was good. This wasn't my favorite episode of the 5, but I'll probably give this episode a 7 out of 10. So I'm really looking forward to what else they're going to do with part 2 of Life Death. I really hope Storm gets her powers back. And it's also revealed that the house they're in is also somewhat haunted, as it's causing a time loop for them in this house. But the next episode, things get really interesting. So while some of the X-Men decide to go to this island, and it's where an island that all mutants can hang out. But while that's happening, Cyclops is getting interviewed at the X Mansion about what it's like to be an X-Men. And he's not really comfortable with answering some of the questions, but the interviewer mainly interviews people like Beast, Jubilee, the other people. But meanwhile, while that's happening, Jean Grey is trying to figure out her memories from her clone. and she's still conflicted about the whole thing, which led to Cyclops lashing out after he was asked about if he has a kid, and he just says, "No, I do not." He keeps denying it, and that's where Wolverine has a talk with Jean, and she ends up actually cheating on Cyclops, which was wild. They end up kissing, and that's where Cyclops and Jean also have a falling out because she's afraid that he has feelings for the clone, and Cyclops is like, "Hey, I love you both equally," but it's just causing a rift in their friendship, their relationship. But while this is all going on, Magneto's with Rogue and Gambit, and they're on this island, and they meet up with the Jean Grey clone. They're all hanging out. They end up meeting with Nightcrawler, which is cool. It's nice to see Nightcrawler again. But that's where it leads to Rogue having a talk with Gambit about her future plans with Magneto, as she discovers that she's able to touch Magneto because of his powers. Because he has magnetic powers, he's able to touch her. And actually starts forming a relationship between the two. It just feels kind of weird, since I always felt like Rogue and Gambit were meant to be in a relationship. But they end up going to a ballroom, and we get this dance sequence. Gambit, Rogue, Magneto, and they both end up kissing, and people are a little shocked by it. But while this is all going on, something very unexpected happens. The Jean Grey clone is confronted by Cable, who comes out of nowhere and says that a dystopian is coming. And that's where something very unexpected happens. We see a Sentinel that comes out of nowhere with 3 heads that manages to kill a bunch of people in this ballroom. And this is where the show gets really intense. This show is PG. Even the original series, it didn't really have blood or anything. It just explored more mature themes. But man, they actually showed the blood and people dying. It's depressing, and Magneto barely makes it out alive with Rogue, but Nightcrawler manages to save them, and Magneto's throwing a subway at the Sentinel, and he does his best to take it down, but it's just not working. But Rogue tries to take out the Sentinel, but she is almost killed by it. But that's where Gambit comes in. He manages to push Rogue out of the way, and something very unfortunate happens. Major spoiler warning. Gambit is stabbed by the Sentinel, and he gives this last line where he says, "Name's Gambit. Remember it." And he manages to blow up the entire Sentinel, and he dies in Rogue's arms. And Cyclops sees this on the news, and he's like, "What happened?" And he manages to swear. I'm surprised the animated stuff that's coming out lately is getting away with swear words, which is surprising. So Gambit dies. I was like, whoa, I never thought they would actually kill Gambit off. I thought he was gonna make it all the way through, but no, he had a pretty great sacrifice, and that just came out of nowhere. So yeah, this episode I kind of zoned out a little when I was watching this episode, but once this stuff started happening, I was like, whoa. So this episode was definitely a 9 out of 10 for sure. So I'm really curious what they're going to do next, since this episode ends on a sad note. But anyway, thanks for watching, and X-Men Unite.